Picture this: markets are crashing, headlines are screaming, and your feed turns into a single word: panic. And in that moment, millions of people reach for the same idea like it's a life jacket. Gold. I need gold. Because gold feels like truth. It feels older than politics, older than governments, older than promises. But here's the uncomfortable question this episode is built around. Is gold actually power, or is it just the most expensive way to feel safe? Tonight we're not doing vibes. We're doing economic history, what gold did when it sat at the center of the monetary system, why it got kicked out, and why it still haunts the world even after the gold era ended. When people praise gold, they usually mean one of two things. Gold as real money, the foundation of a monetary system. Gold as a safe haven, the asset you run to when everything else feels unsafe. Those are not the same claim. A monetary foundation is about governing an economy, credit, employment, banking stability, crisis management. A safe haven is about surviving fear, preserving value when confidence collapses. Gold can be a haven without being a good foundation. And it can feel like power while actually acting like a constraint. So let's test the myth where it matters most. When gold wasn't a symbol, but a rule. The classic gold standard didn't just mean gold is valuable. It meant this: your currency was convertible into gold at a fixed price, and your central bank had to defend that promise. Sounds disciplined. But discipline has a cost. Economic historian Barry Eichengreen's landmark work Golden Fetters argues the gold standard didn't simply stabilize economies, it constrained them, especially in crisis. He describes how the system boxed policymakers into choices that often worsened downturns. Think about the logic trap. A banking panic hits. People want cash. The central bank should flood the system with liquidity to stop the spiral. But if it prints too much, confidence in convertibility weakens. Then foreign holders demand gold. Gold. John Maynard Keynes famously called the gold standard a barbarous relic. That phrase is associated with his critique in a tract on monetary reform, 1923. Keynes wasn't saying gold is useless metal. He was saying, binding a modern economy to a scarce commodity is an outdated mechanism, especially when your economy runs on credit, banking, and complex shocks. Because a modern monetary system has to do things gold hates. Act quickly in crises. Provide liquidity during panics. Stabilize the price level. Prevent deflation spirals. Gold is not designed for that world. It's designed for permanence. And permanence is comforting, until the world needs flexibility to survive. After World War II, the world tried a compromise. The Bretton Woods system tied global currencies to the US dollar, and the dollar to gold, $1.35 per ounce, but crucially, convertibility was primarily for official holders, not everyday citizens. Ben Stiles' The Battle of Bretton Woods explains this wasn't just economics, it was geopolitics and power structure: who would anchor the system, who would set the rules, who would pay the costs. And here's what Bretton Woods reveals about our question: power versus safety. Gold wasn't running the show. The dollar was. Gold was the credibility costume. As long as the US could convincingly maintain convertibility, the system held. When pressures grew, trade deficits, inflation concerns, reserve drain, the costume ripped. And then we got one of the most important dates in modern monetary history. August 15, 1971. On August 15, 1971, President Nixon suspended the dollar's convertibility into gold, closing the gold window. This effectively ended Bretton Woods and accelerated the shift to today's fiat currency era. Notice what did not happen. Civilization didn't collapse. Trade didn't stop. Money didn't become fake overnight. What happened was deeper and more unsettling. Power moved from metal to institutions. From that point on, money became explicitly what it had always partly been. A social technology backed by law, taxation, central banking, and credibility. That doesn't mean fiat money is flawless. It means that the center of the system is no longer gold. So if gold isn't the foundation anymore, why does it still feel so powerful? Because gold did something else. It became insurance. If gold is obsolete as a monetary anchor, why do central banks still keep it? Because central banks aren't chasing romance. They're managing risk. The IMF explicitly states that while the fixed gold-linked system ended in 1973, gold remains an important reserve asset, and the IMF itself is one of the largest official holders. The European Central Bank's recent analysis highlights that gold is held primarily for diversification and as a hedge against geopolitical risk, citing survey data of central banks. And the World Gold Council's central bank surveys describe why officials like gold, diversification, crisis performance, and long-term store of value thinking, plus, importantly, a shift toward more active management of gold reserves. This is the key. Central banks hold gold not because it runs the system, but because in certain extreme scenarios, sanctions risk, settlement risk, credibility shocks, now we hit the part that ruins the simplistic myth. Yes, gold can act like a safe haven. But it doesn't do it all the time, and it's not universal across every market and every crisis. Academic work by Bauer and McDermott, and related research streams, finds that gold can behave as a hedge and safe haven for major developed markets in certain periods, but the safe haven property is often conditional and sometimes short-lived, especially around extreme shocks. Translation for real life. Gold isn't a magic shield. It's a tool, sometimes powerful, sometimes disappointing, depending on the shock, the market, liquidity needs, and the broader macro environment. And there's another brutal truth people ignore. Gold has an opportunity cost. It doesn't yield interest. So when real yields rise, gold's insurance premium can feel expensive. Gold is not a cheat code. Gold is a trade-off. Now we return to the title, because this is where the myth either survives, or dies. Is real power in gold, or in safety? Here's what economic history keeps whispering, again and again, across crises, across decades. Gold is not the engine of the system. Gold is what people grab when they stop trusting the engine. And that difference matters. Because power, in a monetary world, is not a vibe. It's a capability. Real power is the ability to keep the lights on when fear hits the grid. To settle obligations when everyone is running for the exit. To stop a bank run from becoming a national collapse. To keep credit flowing so businesses don't die in a chain reaction. To maintain legitimacy when confidence is evaporating. And here's the problem with the gold myth. Gold can preserve your value. But it cannot preserve the system's function. A functioning economy isn't just money. It just sits there, indifferent. But indifference is not governance. And governance, good or bad, is what determines whether an economy collapses or bends and survives. Now let's make this even sharper. If gold were true power, then countries with the most gold would automatically dominate global finance. But power in global finance doesn't work like that. Power is your ability to issue credible debt. Your ability to enforce contracts. Your ability to keep a stable banking system. Your ability to act fast when panic spreads. Gold can't do those things. Gold doesn't create liquidity in a crisis. Gold doesn't guarantee payrolls get paid next week. Gold doesn't restart credit when confidence freezes. So why does it still feel like power? Because gold is a symbol of something deeper. A vote on trust. When people trust institutions, they chase growth. When people don't trust institutions, they chase protection. That's why gold becomes emotionally overwhelming in uncertain times. Not because gold runs the world. But because gold reveals how fragile trust can be. And here's the final twist that most people miss. When you say, gold is power, you're often really saying, I don't believe the system will protect me. So the next time someone tells you, gold is real power, ask them one question. Power to do what? To shine. Or to stabilize a system in the middle of panic. Because history doesn't say gold is worthless. History says something sharper. Gold is what you reach for when you're not sure who you can trust. And that leads to the most dangerous thought of all. If gold is rising, maybe the real story isn't gold. Maybe the story is why so many people suddenly want safety.